Outlaw Law is brought to you by Whitaker and Hamer, attorneys and counselors at law. Your law firm for life.
The Outlaw Lawyers, Josh Whitaker, Joe Hamer, managing partners, Whitaker and Hamer Law Firm, offices located Raleigh, Garner, Clayton, Goldsboro, Fuquay-Varina, Gastonia, and now in Morehead City. Again, practicing attorneys here in North Carolina. And the Outlaw Lawyer, we talk legalese each and every week. I'm Morgan Patrick, consumer advocate. If you have a legal situation that you're facing and you've got questions, you can always contact the firm. A couple of ways you can do it. You can call 800-659-1186. Leave your contact information, briefly what the call's about, and an attorney with Whitaker and Hamer will be in touch. Again, the number 800-659-1186, or email questions to the show. That's questions at theoutlawlawyer.com. We'll answer those on a future broadcast. Oh, attractive nuisance. That's up next.
Right. So we're going to have to do a short class on just general negligence, right? So negligence. Joe,
I'll do you one better, man. I think we can get more specific to make it even, and it's just an offshoot of that. But we can talk about negligence is essentially if you have a duty of care to someone, and there's various situations where you're going to owe someone a duty of care. It's essentially being, for lack of a better word, negligent in providing that care, and then some damage or injury occurs, and that's where the liability comes from. And in North Carolina, we take that a step further when we talk about attractive nuisances, and we can talk about what is your duty of care to somebody who's essentially trespassing or coming onto your property. And North Carolina actually has a Trespasser Responsibility Act. So as a general rule, as a landowner, you don't owe any kind of a duty of care to any trespasser, and you're not subject to liability for injury to a trespasser. That's like the baseline, but then you've got exceptions. And so when we get into attractive nuisance, we're talking about one of those exceptions, which is basically if you're a landowner, you could be liable for harm to a child trespasser resulting from an artificial condition on the land if there's certain factors that are hit, right? So if you had reason to know that their children were likely to trespass at that location, if you reasonably knew that there was a risk of injury from that condition. So again, there's a list of elements, but in essence, that's what we're talking about with attractive nuisance.
Yeah, so negligence, you owe almost everybody, unless we have a statute like Joe said, or unless we have some sort of exception. We all owe each other a general duty of care, kind of what would an ordinary, reasonable person do, right? So I owe you a duty of care when I'm driving that I'm not going to cross the center line and hit you. Because if I do, well, then that's negligence. I have been negligent. At least your vehicle, if not you, were harmed as a result of my negligence, and I owe you damages, whatever they may be, right? And so you have plaintiff's attorney. These are a lot of the guys that advertise on TV all the time. Car accidents, truck accidents, motorcycle accidents. Those are all the same type of law, kind of slip and falls, right? If you're in a store and they've mopped, but they haven't put up signs and you fall, that's negligence. Medical malpractice is an offshoot of that too, if doctor's not using the standard ordinary care. So negligence is this broad legal theory that operates in a lot of different ways. But here, I think the example you see, and unfortunately, I think in Raleigh, a month or two ago, we saw this happen. It made the news. But having a pool that's open to this pool was open to I think residents, the last one that I saw, but not having proper safety fence, right? Whatever you need, not having the safety measures you need in place, and then someone, God forbid, dies or gets hurt, then this is kind of an attractive nuisance theory. You've built this pool that people are going to come to, and you haven't fenced it off right. You haven't done whatever right. And God forbid someone gets hurt, then you're going to be liable under this theory of negligence, an attractive nuisance. And so that happens.
It does happen. And like you said, there's a level of fairness that we look to and that plays into this. And so we don't want anyone who's taken the proper steps, who's put because again, it's your property, and we're talking about a situation potentially where you got no clue that there's somebody coming on your property. And again, in North Carolina, one of the elements is that you could reasonably expect that somebody was going to come and be drawn to this attractive nuisance. So I guess you can't say you had no clue, because the argument against that is that you should have had a clue, right? But but there's elements of fairness built into this. And if you do what you should do, if you protect from this nuisance, if you don't have some kind of unreasonably dangerous, attractive condition, then you're going to be all right. But again, you get into situations where there's just no, that level of care that we are saying as a society you have to have in this situation. It's just at such a low point that we're going to find you liable and you're going to have a problem if someone gets hurt.
I think it's important to point out too, attractive nuisance theory was really when you change land, right? So you have to build a pool. There's been cases where someone's had a bunch of abandoned cars in their front yard. And
trampolines, tree houses.
Yeah, trampolines, tree houses. It's things that kids would be attracted to.
This says tunnels. I can't see myself going into a random stranger's tunnel, but maybe.
Yeah, so the attractive nuisance is basically for kids, and there's been some adults who have some impairments where they, their decision-making ability is childlike. So it's a child or a childlike person who wanders onto your property to play in something that is an attractive nuisance, something you've created through neglect, like abandoned cars, or because you went out and bought your kids. Trampolines are so dangerous, man.
They are, man, but they're so much fun. You ever done a backflip on a trampoline? If not, we should leave the show and immediately go, and I want you to bust out a backflip.
So
feels great.
Back when I was growing up, no one had those little trampolines like they have now, and there was no netting. Sometimes you see these little ones and there's netting. We had
netting's for wimps. Netting's for
man.
wimps.
These kids these days where they're netting, that's the downfall of our society right there. Kids with netting on their trampoline.
Every kid that I knew, and there wasn't a lot of them. It wasn't like everybody had trampolines back in the day because they were expensive and they were huge, right? Yeah. A trampoline back then was like the size of a pool, right? You would go to your friend's house that had a trampoline. There'd be like 99 kids on it.
Oh yeah.
And someone always got hurt, man. Not like hospital hurt, but like hurt bad enough where everybody had to go home.
There's kids out there getting hospital hurt on these things, but I got hurt a number of times on trampolines. I'd ask every year for Christmas. I'd ask for a trampoline and a 4-wheeler, and I never once got them because my parents were smart. They knew that'd be it for me.
I got lucky. I had a 4-wheeler. Growing up, but no trampolines.
But yeah, I got a couple. I had the old cracked sternum one time from a trampoline.
Oh man,
doing the backflip and landed wrong. We used to do a lot of wrestling on the trampolines, man.
Well, you have to.
That's what it was there for.
I know. Why get it if you're not?
Yeah, that's it. What other purpose is there?
But yeah, you put a trampoline in your front yard and it's just out there, and these kids show up and they get hurt on it. You're probably going to have some liability, even though they're on your property. Because you've created an attractive nuisance. And
potentially, again, there's other things. It's an oversimplification to say that, but I think everybody should be aware of the potentiality of that, right? Like of you doing something like this, somebody wandering onto the property, and then you end up with an issue.
What about
natural?
What about this, guys? And it's just a slight diversion from that. What if you're having a kids party and you have a bouncy house and you rent it? And it comes to the house and somebody at the party, the kids run into each other, tooth gets lodged in another kid's head, stuff like that. I mean, are you liable?
Good God, Morgan.
Yeah, no, I think so. If it happens on your property, I mean, arguably if the bouncy house failed for some reason or wasn't operating properly, maybe the person who rented it to you might have some liability. But if there's just at your house and you've invited folks in,
it's on you, man.
Yeah, don't ever invite anybody to your house you don't like.
You're going to get sued, and then you're going to have to sue somebody else if you want to try to, place the blame elsewhere.
I think
you said don't invite anyone to your house. Yeah. You should live in a cave
that you don't know real well or you don't like.
Yeah. I can see that.
I think it's important to point out though. You have to create the attractive nuisance, right? So if you buy 10 acres and there's a pond in the front yard, and you post all these signs that people aren't supposed to use your pond, private pond, no trespassers, and then someone drowns in that pond. Now, you may have some liability. I'm not going to say you're scot-free, but it's not going to be attractive nuisance liability because that is the natural condition of the land, right? Attractive nuisance only really comes into play when you've created something that would attract people. So I think that's important. So like if I think this is how this question came up. This was a listener question, and it was basically about a pond. And what can I do to get rid of any liability? And, you post your notices, you run people off if people are there. You make it known that no one is supposed to be there. But if something happens, you've done everything you can do, and that's just the natural state of the land.
And like you said, that's not going to be an attractive nuisance issue. And just expanding on things that we don't consider attractive nuisance type of issues. You got ponds and lakes, you got cliffs and hills, small things that can be choking hazards like acorns and sticks. You're good on all those, man. So you don't have to worry about some idiot kid rolling up in your yard and eating all your acorns and choking.
So when we were in law, I don't know how they do it now. When I was in law school and they started talking about this negligence and they started talking about trespassers and attractive nuisances, there's all these cases in like the 1800s about shotgun traps. Did you ever read about those, Joe?
I didn't, but it sounds awesome and I want to hear all about it.
So I guess there was this rash back in the day. What you would do is you'd set up a hidden shotgun trap. And so somebody walks on your property, they trespass. There's a tripwire and the shotgun like blasts them.
That'll teach those kids that want to jump on my trampoline.
You can't do that.
No.
Yes.
No.
That's kind of another line of negligence, kind of under attractive nuisance. You have created a danger. So
you can't do the shotgun trap, man. You think that goes without saying, but you never know, man.
Like there's companies. I'm gonna have to Google shotgun traps and see if that's any. But yeah, don't do that.
Probably put you on a watch list.
If you've been listening to us, we're going into our. I don't know how long we've been doing this now.
Years, man.
If you don't learn anything else from us, do not put a shotgun trap on your property to shoot potential trespassers.
Let's not do the shotgun trap.
All right, we're going to stay away from shotgun traps. Josh Whitaker, Joe Hamer, managing partners, Whitaker and Hamer Law Firm. They are the power behind this show, the Outlaw Lawyers. They are practicing attorneys here in North Carolina. Offices conveniently located in Raleigh, Garner, Clayton, Goldsboro, Fuquay-Varina, Gastonia, and now in Morehead City. And again, if you are facing a legal situation, you've got questions, you can always call the firm, 800-659-1186. Leave your contact information, briefly what that call's about, and an attorney with Whitaker and Hamer will be in touch. Again, the number 800-659-1186, and you can always email your questions to the show, questions@theoutlawlawyer.com. We'll answer them on a future broadcast. More listener questions coming up.